The evening was calm in the small town cafe. The air smelled of fresh coffee and warm bread, while soft music played in the background. It was one of those places where people came not just for food but for peace. The tables were full of ordinary people, families, workers, and students. No one knew that something unexpected was about to happen that night. At the corner of the cafe stood a young waitress named Maya. She wore a plain uniform, her dark skin glowing softly under the warm yellow lights. Maya was known by everyone in town for her kind smile and patient voice. She worked long hours but never complained. Even in her tiredness, she carried herself with calmness. Maya had dreams bigger than her surroundings. She wanted to study further, maybe open her own small restaurant one day, but life had been hard. Her father had passed away years ago, and her mother was too ill to work. So Maya became the strength of her family. Every plate she served, every smile she gave, carried the weight of her hidden struggles. That night, among the many customers, sat a man who did not look like he belonged there. He was dressed simply, in jeans and a plain shirt, but something about him stood out. His watch looked expensive, his shoes polished, and his quiet manner carried an unusual confidence. He sat alone, observing quietly as if he were studying the world around him. His name was David, though no one in the cafe recognized him. People didn't know that he was one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. David had been passing through the town after a long meeting. Tired of luxury hotels and grand restaurants, he wanted to taste something simple, something real. That's why he entered the small cafe. For the first time in months, he felt invisible, just another man with a plate of food. But his attention kept going back to Maya. He noticed the way she gently comforted a crying child at one table, the way she smiled at an elderly couple, and the calm way she managed all the work alone. Suddenly, the calmness of the cafe was broken. The front door burst open with a loud sound. Two men entered, their faces covered with scarves. One of them shouted harshly, waving a metal object in the air. The cheerful chatter of the cafe turned into gasps and fearful silence. Children began to cry, and people froze in their chairs. "Everyone stay quiet," one of the men ordered. The other moved toward the counter, demanding money. Fear spread like fire. Some customers hid under tables, others looked around helplessly. For most, it felt like time had stopped. But Maya did not lose her calm. She stood still, her heart racing inside but her face steady. Instead of panicking, she looked at the men with quiet eyes. She slowly raised her hands to show she meant no harm. Then, in a steady voice, she said, "Please, don't hurt anyone. Take what you need, but don't scare the children." Her voice was soft, almost motherly. It surprised the robbers. For a moment, their harshness weakened. The cafe was silent except for Maya's calm tone. She walked slowly toward the counter, keeping her movements gentle. She collected the cash with careful hands and placed it in a bag for the men. Not once did she tremble. David, watching from his table, was astonished. He had seen many things in his life: boardrooms filled with powerful leaders, hotels filled with luxury, even crises in his business empire. But he had never seen such strength in such a simple setting. A young waitress, with nothing but her calmness and courage, was holding the entire cafe together. The robbers grabbed the money and rushed out, leaving behind fear, broken glasses, and silence. Slowly, the people inside began to breathe again. A mother hugged her child, an old man whispered a prayer of thanks. But all eyes turned toward Maya. She stood near the counter, breathing deeply, her hands slightly shaking now that the danger had passed. She forced a smile to comfort the frightened customers. "It's over," she said gently. "You're safe now." In that moment, David felt something shift inside him. He realized he had witnessed a rare kind of strength, one that did not come from money, power, or fame. It came from the heart of a young woman who chose calmness over fear. David sat quietly, but his mind was racing. He knew this night was not ordinary. Something about Maya's courage had touched him deeply, more than any business success ever had. He had no idea yet, but his next move after this night would not only change Maya's life but also shock the world. The cafe was still in shock after the robbery. Chairs were overturned, a few cups lay broken on the floor, and frightened whispers filled the air. Yet, in the middle of the mess, Maya kept moving with steady steps. She comforted the customers, helped a crying child back to his seat, and offered water to an elderly woman whose hands were shaking. Her calmness gave people strength. Slowly, life returned to the cafe. Some customers even thanked her before leaving, saying her courage had made the difference. Maya only nodded with a humble smile, though her heart was still heavy. She was not thinking of herself but of her mother at home, waiting for her safe return. At the corner table, David still sat quietly, watching everything. He had not revealed who he was. To the people in the cafe, he was just another customer. But inside, his thoughts were far from ordinary. He could not stop replaying the moment when Maya faced the robbers without fear. It wasn't just bravery, it was selflessness. She cared more about protecting others than about herself. After the police finally arrived and took statements, the crowd thinned. The cafe became quiet again. Maya began cleaning the broken pieces, her hands moving slowly, tired but steady. David stood up and walked toward her. "You were very brave," he said softly. Maya looked up, a little surprised. She didn't know who he was, but she noticed the kindness in his eyes. "I only did what I had to," she replied. "If I panicked, others would have panicked too." David nodded, impressed by her words. He wanted to ask more, but he held himself back. Instead, he offered to help her pick up the broken glass. For a moment, they worked side by side in silence. When the cafe finally closed, Maya prepared to leave. She walked out into the cool night, her worn-out shoes tapping gently on the pavement. David followed her out, still unsure of how to express what he felt. "Do you always walk home this late?" he asked carefully. "Yes," Maya replied. "I don't live far." She hesitated, then smiled politely. "Thank you for your concern, but I'll be fine." David wanted to insist on walking her home, but he didn't want to make her uncomfortable. So instead, he simply said, "You're stronger than you know." Maya didn't fully understand his words, but she nodded and continued on her way. That night, David could not sleep. In his hotel room, surrounded by luxury, he kept thinking about the young waitress. He had met thousands of people, business leaders, politicians, celebrities, but none had touched him like Maya did. Her calmness, her courage, and her quiet strength kept echoing in his mind. The next morning, David returned to the cafe. He wanted to see her again, to know more about her. Maya was already working, serving breakfast to a group of workers. Her smile was the same as before, even though her eyes showed a trace of tiredness. When she noticed David, she greeted him politely. "You're back," she said. "Yes," David replied. "I like the food here." "And the peace." Maya laughed lightly. "Peace? After last night? That was far from peaceful. David smiled. True. But you made it peaceful. Somehow, you did. Maya shook her head modestly. I only tried my best. As David sipped his coffee, he observed how hard she worked. She moved quickly from table to table, balancing plates, listening to orders, and still managing to give everyone a warm smile. He could see that she carried a lot on her shoulders, but she never let it show. During a quiet moment, David asked, "Do you ever rest? You seem to work all the time." Maya looked down, her smile fading slightly. I don't have much choice. My mother is sick. She needs medicine, and I have to pay for it. So I work as much as I can. David's heart tightened. He had expected something like this, but hearing it from her own mouth touched him deeply. She wasn't just brave, she was selfless, sacrificing her own comfort for her family. He wanted to tell her who he was, to offer her help immediately. But something held him back. He didn't want her to see him as just a rich man trying to play hero. He wanted to understand her world first, to see the real person she was. For the next few days, David kept visiting the cafe. Each time, he watched Maya with growing admiration. She treated everyone with equal respect, the rich, the poor, the young, and the old. She never lost patience, even when customers were rude. One evening, as David was leaving, he overheard two customers whispering about Maya. She deserves more than this place, one said. Yes, the other agreed. But life is unfair. People like her rarely get the chance they deserve. David walked out with those words stuck in his heart. He knew they were true. But he also knew he had the power to change that. That night, David made a decision. Maya's courage had not only saved the cafe that night, it had opened his eyes. He realized that money and success meant nothing if they couldn't be used to lift others. And so, quietly but firmly, David began to plan his next move, one that would not just change Maya's life, but would also shock the world. Days passed, and the memory of the robbery slowly faded for most people. Customers returned to the cafe, laughter filled the tables again, and life seemed normal. But for David, nothing was the same. He had returned to his busy world, meetings, contracts, and endless phone calls. Yet, even in the middle of his tall glass office, with a skyline view of the city, his mind kept going back to that small cafe and the young waitress who had shown more strength than any leader he had ever met. Maya's face, her calm voice, her simple words, they stayed with him like a quiet melody that refused to leave. David had wealth that could buy anything, but money had never given him peace. Success had filled his life with noise, but not meaning. That night in the cafe, when he saw Maya's courage, something inside him awakened. He realized that true strength was not about control or wealth, it was about compassion, about standing steady when everyone else broke down. One evening, David sat in his office late, staring at his reflection in the glass window. His assistant entered with a folder of new projects. But David barely looked at it. Instead, he said quietly, "Do you think a single person's courage can change the world?" The assistant, confused, replied, "Maybe, sir. But why do you ask?" David only smiled faintly. "Because I think I just witnessed it." He dismissed his assistant and sat alone, deep in thought. For the first time in years, his heart wanted to do something not for profit, not for reputation, but simply because it was right. Meanwhile, Maya continued her routine at the cafe. Every morning, she woke early, prepared breakfast for her mother, gave her medicine, and then walked to work. She was tired, but she never showed it. The cafe had become her second home, and the customers were like her extended family. Yet, deep inside, Maya sometimes felt the weight of hopelessness. She wanted to study further, to give her mother a better life, but her earnings were barely enough to cover food, rent, and medicine. Still, she never complained. She believed one should carry burdens with patience and faith. One afternoon, as Maya cleared a table, she noticed David again. He had returned, sitting in the same corner seat as before. She smiled politely. "Back again?" "Yes," David replied warmly. "I think this place is special." Maya laughed softly. "Most people don't think so. It's just a simple cafe." David shook his head. "Sometimes, the simplest places hold the most meaning." They spoke for a while. David asked her about her dreams, and Maya, shy at first, shared a little. "I always wanted to study hospitality. I wanted to open my own restaurant, a place where people feel like family. But life had other plans." David listened carefully. Every word she spoke only confirmed what he already felt: this young woman had something rare, something that deserved to be nurtured. That night, David returned to his penthouse apartment, but his mind was restless. He thought about Maya's dream and her struggles. For years, he had invested in companies, stocks, and properties. But now, for the first time, he wanted to invest in a person. The next morning, he called his financial advisor. "I want to start a foundation," he said firmly. "For what purpose, sir?" the advisor asked. David paused, then replied, "For people who show courage and kindness, even in the hardest moments. I want to give them opportunities they never had." It was a bold idea, but David felt certain. And at the center of this foundation, he wanted Maya to be the first. Back at the cafe, Maya's life went on as usual. She had no idea that her quiet act of bravery during the robbery had touched someone powerful. She only knew that she had done what was right. One evening, as the cafe was about to close, David stayed behind while others left. Maya approached him with her usual gentle smile. "Would you like anything else before I close?" David looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Yes. I would like to talk to you about something important." Maya tilted her head, surprised. "About what?" "About your future," David replied softly. Maya froze. She had not expected such words from a customer. "My future," she repeated, unsure if she had heard right. David nodded. "Yes. You may not know me well, but I believe your strength deserves more than what this cafe can give. I want to help you." Maya looked at him in shock. She didn't know what to say. Part of her felt gratitude, another part felt fear. Why would a stranger care about her future? David noticed her hesitation and added gently, "I don't mean to scare you. But sometimes life puts us in places where we meet people for a reason. You gave courage to many that night. Now it's time someone gave you a chance." Maya's eyes softened, though she still didn't fully understand. She whispered, "I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll think about it," David replied with a calm smile. Maya nodded slowly. For the first time in a long while, she felt a small spark of hope. What Maya didn't know was that this simple conversation was only the beginning. David's next move would not only change her life but would soon echo across the world, leaving everyone astonished. The night after David's words, Maya found herself unable to sleep. She lay beside her mother, who rested quietly, unaware of the storm of thoughts running through her daughter's mind. What did he mean by helping me? Maya whispered to herself. Why would someone like him care about my future? She wanted to believe in hope, but years of struggle had taught her not to expect miracles. She was used to carrying burdens on her own shoulders. Accepting help from a stranger felt both dangerous and unreal. The next morning, Maya returned to the cafe. The routine was the same: cleaning tables, taking orders, and smiling at customers, but her mind was distracted. Every time the bell above the cafe door rang, she half expected to see David. And by noon, he did appear. He entered calmly, like any other customer, and took his usual corner seat. Maya approached with a polite smile, though inside her heart beat a little faster. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," David replied warmly. As she poured his coffee, Maya finally spoke. "About what you said last night. I don't understand." "Why me? Why do you want to help me?" David looked at her seriously. "Because you showed something rare, Maya. That night during the robbery, you didn't think of yourself. You thought of others. Most people run, hide, or freeze in fear. But you stayed calm. You became the strength for everyone else. That kind of courage cannot be ignored." Maya lowered her eyes, shy but thoughtful. "I only did what anyone should do." David shook his head gently. "No. Not everyone would have done it. That's why I believe you deserve more." For a moment, silence hung between them. Maya finally asked, "Who are you really?" David paused, then decided it was time to reveal a part of himself. "My name is David, and I own several companies. Some people call me a billionaire, but I don't care about that. What matters is what we do with what we have. And I want to use what I have to give people like you a chance." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. She had never imagined that the quiet man who sat in the corner of the cafe was such a powerful figure. She stepped back slightly, unsure how to respond. "You're a billionaire?" she asked, almost whispering. "Yes," David admitted, "but that's not what defines me. What defines me is what I choose to do now. And I want to help you." Maya felt her hands tremble. The offer sounded too big, too impossible. Her heart wanted to believe, but her mind warned her to be careful. "I don't know if I can accept this," she said softly. David leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. Take your time. Think about it. But please, don't say no just because you're afraid. Sometimes the right doors open when we least expect them." That evening, when Maya returned home, she told her mother about the strange conversation. Her mother listened carefully, her weak hands resting on the blanket. "Maybe this is the blessing we prayed for," her mother said gently. "Not all people with wealth are cruel, Maya. Some truly want to help. You must listen to your heart." Maya held her mother's hand tightly. "But what if it's not real? What if I'm dreaming too much?" Her mother smiled faintly. "Sometimes, dreams come to us in ways we cannot explain. Don't push them away." Those words stayed with Maya all night. The following day, David returned again, but this time, he did not sit as a customer. Instead, he asked Maya if she could join him after her shift. At first, she hesitated, but then she agreed. When the cafe closed, Maya found David waiting outside. He led her to a quiet park nearby. The evening sky was painted with soft colors, and children played in the distance. It felt safe. "I don't want to pressure you," David began. But I've been thinking. You told me about your dream to study hospitality and one day open your own restaurant. I want to make that possible. Maya stared at him, unsure if she had heard correctly. Make it possible? How? I can pay for your studies, David explained. Not just that. I can support your mother's medical care, so you don't have to worry. And when you're ready, I can help you open the restaurant you dream about. Maya's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. For years, she had carried her hopes silently, thinking they were too far away. And now, a man she barely knew was offering to make them real. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes to your future, David said gently. Maya shook her head, overwhelmed. Why me? There are so many people who need help. Why choose me? David looked into her eyes. Because sometimes fate chooses for us. That night in the cafe, I was meant to see you. I believe that. Maya covered her face with her hands, tears falling softly. For the first time, she felt the heavy doors of her life beginning to open. I need time, she finally said. Take all the time you need, David replied kindly. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. As they sat in silence, the stars began to appear above. Maya felt both afraid and hopeful. Deep inside, she knew her life was about to change in ways she could not imagine. And the world, too, would soon witness something extraordinary. The days that followed were filled with deep thought for Maya. Every morning she walked to the cafe, every evening she returned home, but her mind was no longer only on her routine. David's offer echoed in her heart like a soft but steady voice. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to trust him. But her life had taught her that promises were fragile things. Many people in the past had promised to help her family, but those words often disappeared like smoke. Could this time really be different? Her mother's health was getting weaker. Medicine was costly, and Maya often skipped her own meals to make sure her mother had enough. When she thought about David's words, hope flickered in her heart, but fear followed close behind. At the cafe, David kept visiting. He never pressured her, never rushed her decision. Instead, he treated her with respect, as if her choice mattered more than his wealth. Sometimes he sat quietly, sipping coffee, while Maya worked. Other times, he asked about her day or her mother's health. Slowly, Maya began to see that his concern was genuine. One afternoon, as Maya wiped down a table, David spoke softly. Maya, I know you're still unsure. But I want you to remember something: accepting help is not weakness. Sometimes, it's the strongest choice you can make. Maya looked at him thoughtfully. I just don't want to feel like a burden. David smiled gently. You are not a burden. You are a person with dreams, and dreams deserve a chance. His words stayed with her. That night, as she sat beside her mother, she whispered, Do you think I should trust him? Her mother, though weak, gave a faint smile. I think you should trust yourself, Maya. Your heart will tell you if he is true. The next morning, Maya made a quiet decision. She would give David a chance. When he came to the cafe that day, she walked up to his table and spoke softly. I've thought about your offer. If you really mean it, if it's truly from your heart, then I will say yes. David's face lit up with relief. Then it's decided. We'll start this journey together. From that day forward, things began to change. David arranged for Maya's mother to receive proper medical care. A doctor visited their small home, and medicine was provided without delay. For the first time in years, Maya felt the weight on her shoulders grow lighter. But David's support didn't stop there. He also arranged for Maya to enroll in a hospitality program at a respected school. At first, Maya felt nervous. She hadn't studied in years, and she wondered if she was good enough. But David encouraged her gently. "You have everything it takes," he told her. "All you need is the chance to show it." On her first day at the program, Maya walked into the classroom with trembling hands. She looked around at the other students, many of whom came from wealthy families. She felt out of place. But then she remembered David's words and lifted her chin. Day by day, she studied hard. She learned about food, service, management, and even business planning. While others took things lightly, Maya poured her heart into every lesson. She knew this was not just for her, it was for her mother, for her future, and for the faith David had placed in her. Meanwhile, David watched her progress quietly from the sidelines. He didn't interfere, but he made sure she had everything she needed. When she struggled, he reminded her gently that failure was only a step toward growth. As months passed, Maya began to shine. Her teachers praised her dedication, her classmates admired her calmness, and her confidence grew. She discovered talents she never knew she had: creativity in cooking, leadership in teamwork, and vision in planning. One evening, after a long day at school, Maya met David in the same park where they had once spoken. She looked at him with gratitude shining in her eyes. "You've changed everything for me," she said softly. "I don't know how to thank you." David shook his head. "Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing: when you succeed, use your success to help others, the way you were helped." Maya nodded firmly. "I promise." What neither of them knew was that their story was beginning to spread. People in the town had started talking about the billionaire who supported the brave waitress. Some admired him, some doubted his intentions, but all were curious. And soon, the story would travel far beyond the town, touching hearts across the world. For now, Maya focused on her studies, and David continued his quiet support. But deep inside, both of them sensed that something greater was on the horizon. The world was watching, even if they didn't know it yet. And soon, David's next move would make headlines everywhere. Months turned into a year, and Maya's life was no longer the same. From a tired waitress in a small cafe, she had become a student full of hope, learning skills she had once thought were out of her reach. Her days were busy with classes, assignments, and projects, but instead of exhaustion, she felt purpose. Her mother's health improved with regular medical care. Though still weak, she now smiled more often, proud of her daughter's progress. Every evening, when Maya returned home, her mother would listen eagerly as she shared stories of what she had learned that day. David, though busy with his companies, kept in touch. Sometimes he visited the cafe to remind himself where it all began. Other times he met Maya after class, encouraging her and reminding her that hard work always paid off. He never treated her as someone who owed him, he treated her as someone whose success mattered. But outside their small circle, whispers were growing louder. News reporters had begun to notice. The story of a billionaire supporting a young waitress after witnessing her courage during a robbery was spreading fast. At first, it was local newspapers. Then larger channels picked it up. Soon, people across the country were reading about Maya and David. Some admired David for his generosity. Others doubted him, suggesting it was all for publicity. Maya, too, felt the weight of these whispers. One day, a classmate approached her and said, "You're lucky. Most of us have to struggle for years, but you already have a billionaire backing you." Maya smiled politely, but inside her heart ached. She didn't want people to think her journey was handed to her. She wanted them to see the truth that she worked hard, that she studied late into the night, that she gave everything she had to make her dream real. David noticed her unease. One evening, as they sat in the park, he asked, "Are people bothering you?" Maya sighed. "Some think I don't deserve this. They say I'm only here because of you." David looked at her seriously. "And what do you think?" Maya hesitated. "I think you gave me a chance, yes. But I also think I'm working for it." Still, their words hurt sometimes. David leaned forward. "Then remember this, the world will always have opinions. Some will cheer for you, some will criticize you. But none of their voices matter more than your own. If you know you're giving your best, that is enough." Maya nodded slowly, his words giving her strength. Soon, her training program was nearing completion. As part of the final project, students were asked to design a plan for their dream business. While others created ideas for hotels or fancy restaurants, Maya drew a plan for a small, warm place, a cafe that felt like home, where anyone, rich or poor, could sit and feel welcome. When she presented her project, the room fell silent. Her teachers admired the simplicity and heart behind her vision. "You're not just planning a restaurant," one teacher said. "You're planning a family for strangers." David, who had attended quietly in the back, felt his chest tighten with pride. Maya wasn't just learning skills, she was shaping a dream that reflected who she was inside. After the program ended, David asked her gently, "Are you ready to take the next step?" Maya's eyes lit up. "You mean, open the cafe?" David smiled. "Yes. But this time, it won't just be my help. It will be your hard work, your ideas, your leadership. I will support you, but this will be your creation." Maya felt tears in her eyes. "I've waited my whole life for this moment." And so, the work began. Together, they searched for a small building in town. They found one near the park, with wide windows and enough space for a cozy cafe. Maya spent hours choosing colors, planning the menu, and designing the interior. David stood by her side, guiding but never controlling. Word spread quickly. The town buzzed with excitement. "The waitress who stood calm during the robbery is opening her own cafe," people said. "And the billionaire is standing with her." Reporters came, cameras flashed, and soon the story reached the international stage. People everywhere were touched by the tale of courage, kindness, and second chances. On the day before the grand opening, Maya stood in the empty cafe, looking at the tables, the counters, the warm lights. She touched the wooden chairs, her eyes filling with tears. "This was once only a dream," she whispered. David, standing beside her, said softly, "And now it's reality. Because you believed, and you worked for it." The next morning, when the cafe opened its doors for the first time, the line stretched down the street. Customers came not just for food, but to be part of the story. They wanted to meet the young woman who had stayed calm in the face of fear, and the billionaire who believed in her enough to change her life. The world was watching. And soon, David's next decision would turn this story into something even greater, something that would inspire millions across nations. The grand opening day arrived, and the small town cafe was buzzing with excitement. Balloons decorated the entrance, The smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air, and a sense of hope seemed to flow through the streets. The townspeople had come in large numbers, curious to see Maya, the brave young woman whose courage had touched so many hearts, and the mysterious billionaire, David, who had helped make her dream come true. Maya stood behind the counter, dressed in a simple apron, her dark skin glowing in the morning sunlight. She could hardly believe the journey that had brought her here. From a quiet waitress surviving day by day, to a student learning, growing, and now opening her own cafe, it all felt like a dream she was finally living. David arrived early, as he always did, though he blended into the crowd quietly. He had helped with the arrangements, but he let Maya take the lead. He wanted her to shine, to feel the full weight of her achievement. As the first customers walked in, Maya's hands trembled slightly. She remembered the robbery, the fear, the helplessness she had once felt. And now, she realized that those moments had shaped her, given her strength, and led her to this very day. She smiled, serving the first cup of coffee with care. The townspeople watched in admiration. Some came to congratulate her, others to simply witness history in the making. Cameras flashed, but Maya didn't feel overwhelmed. She focused on her customers, on making them feel welcome, and on the joy of finally living her dream. By midday, the cafe was full. David noticed how gracefully Maya managed everything, her calmness evident even under pressure. She moved from table to table, talking to customers, arranging orders, and ensuring that everyone felt valued. He thought back to that night of the robbery, and he realized that nothing he had done could match the courage she had shown then. Finally, as the lunch rush settled, David asked Maya to step outside with him. She followed him to the small park nearby, where children played and the town felt peaceful. "Maya," David began, "you've done something remarkable. Not just today, but every day leading up to this. You've taken every challenge and turned it into strength." Maya looked down, her hands clasped together. "I couldn't have done this without your help," she said softly. David shook his head. "No. You did this. I only gave you a chance. You took it and made it real. That courage, that determination, it's yours." For a moment, silence passed between them, filled only with the sounds of the town around them. Then David smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "I have one more thing to do. Something the world needs to see." He pulled out his phone and took a short video of Maya, speaking about her journey, the robbery, the struggles, her dreams, and the lessons she had learned along the way. He shared it on his social media accounts, which reached millions in hours. The story spread like wildfire. Headlines appeared: "Brave Waitress turns dream into reality with help from Billionaire, courage, kindness, and hope inspire millions." Soon, messages poured in from around the world. People were inspired by Maya's story. Some donated to her cafe, some offered encouragement, and others simply shared the video, spreading her courage far and wide. The quiet waitress who had once faced fear alone was now a symbol of hope for millions. Maya couldn't believe it. She read the messages with tears in her eyes, thinking of her mother, her small home, and the long nights she had spent dreaming of a better life. She finally understood that courage and kindness, even in the smallest moments, could ripple outward and touch the lives of many. David watched her quietly, proud but humble. He had always believed in the power of giving, but he realized that the real miracle was seeing someone like Maya rise, not because of wealth or influence, but because of her heart. That evening, when the cafe was quiet again, Maya stood by the counter, looking at the first customers who had left notes of encouragement and small gifts. She felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had faced fear, carried hope, worked tirelessly, and now, she had created a place filled with love and warmth. Her mother, sitting nearby, held her hand. "You did it, Maya. You turned your courage into something the world can see." Maya smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. "It's not just me. It's everyone who believed in me, and everyone who gave me a chance. And David, he showed me that people do care, even when you think they won't." David, standing at the edge of the cafe, nodded quietly. He had done more than offer help, he had helped the world witness courage, and in doing so, inspired countless others to believe that one act of bravery could change everything. The cafe became more than a business, it became a symbol. A place where courage met kindness, where dreams could grow, and where the world could see that even ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things when someone believes in them. And as the sun set, painting the town in soft golden light, Maya realized that her journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, new dreams to chase, and more people to inspire. But now she knew the truth: courage, hope, and kindness could indeed change the world. And in that moment, both Maya and David understood that sometimes, a single brave act could spark a chain of events powerful enough to touch millions, leaving a legacy that no one would ever forget. The world had watched, and the world had learned, courage and kindness were stronger than fear, and one person's calmness in a moment of crisis could truly shock and inspire the world.